After finishing a part-time shift, at a time I normally don't work, I was walking home at night. The fatigue doubled because during the day I was forced to help with the preparations for a party I couldn't even attend by my daughter-in-law, Isabella, who had returned from shopping. But it was for my granddaughter Mia's celebration, and just imagining the joy in my grandson Stephen's face as a proud big brother kept me motivated. As I passed by the house, I noticed the lights were still on. Looking at the clock, it was already past 9 p.m. It was about time to put Stephen to bed. Thinking this, as I looked back towards the house, I saw a sight that made me do a double take. Stephen was sitting alone in the garden, staring into the room. Why was Stephen outside? Stephen, what's wrong? Stephen gave me a relieved smile, and then the next moment he started to cry. What happened? Why are you out here all by yourself? Stephen seemed like he wanted to say something, then started with an apologetic tone.
Today's Mia's birthday, but I'm not allowed inside because it's just for the family.
He sobbed. How could this be? Unable to bear it, I silently took Stephen's arm and started walking out of the gate. Something that shouldn't have happened had happened again. You haven't eaten anything since noon, have you? Grandma's tired from work too and I'm hungry. Let's go eat something delicious. I spoke in my usual tone, trying to reassure Stephen as much as possible. Sensing something, Stephen responded cheerfully. Leaving Stephen alone at the restaurant table, I stood up. Pretending to go to the fountain machine, I took up my cell phone. I haven't contacted her in a while, but I wonder if it will connect. After a few rings, hello? A puzzled voice came through. I introduced myself and apologized for calling so late at night, then briefly explained the situation Stephen was in. The person on the phone said, "I'll be right there," and hung up. After a while, a woman entered the restaurant. She looked towards the entrance, and noticing us, quickly made her way to our table with a raised hand. "Mom?" With an expression of disbelief, Stephen looked up at the woman, who couldn't hold back her tears as she embraced him.
Is that you, Mom?
My name is Natalie. I'm 57 years old. My husband passed away a year ago, and I live in the house he left us. My family consists of my son, his wife, and 2 grandchildren, making us a family of 5. It's a complicated story, but my son Joseph is divorced, and his wife Isabella is his second wife. My elder grandson Stephen is from Joseph's previous marriage, and there's no blood relation between Isabella and the younger granddaughter Mia. 3 years ago, Joseph was cheated on by his first wife and came back to this house with Stephen. At that time, Stephen, who was not used to this house, was emotionally unstable, seeking the presence of his mom. He was only 2 years old. Seeing Stephen like that, I took great care of him. The following year, Joseph brought his girlfriend over. "Mom, I'm gonna remarry this woman," he suddenly announced, surprising me. I thought he was hardly at home because of work, but this was the reason. While his own son was emotionally unstable, he had been neglecting him and having fun. Despite being my own son, I was so appalled that I couldn't say anything. "And she's pregnant with a child." I was further shocked with a follow-up.
You might be surprised since it's so sudden, but we're hoping for your support.
"Looking for a new place is a hassle, and this house is spacious with extra rooms, so we thought of continuing to live here. That's okay, right?" What a brazen attitude. But knowing there was a child in her belly, how could I have possibly kicked them out? And so the life with my son, his wife, and the grandchild began. I don't know what Joseph's previous wife was like since I lived apart, but Isabella didn't do much housework. Seeing her get along with Stephen, I figured she couldn't be a bad daughter-in-law. However, she would excuse herself from all house chores, blaming it on her pregnancy. Honestly, since I was working part-time, I tried asking if she could help out with the house chores a little. But
I'm having terrible morning sickness. My belly hurts so much.
She would come up with one excuse after another. When she said that, I couldn't force her to do anything. She looked perfectly healthy to me, but pregnancy hardships vary from person to person, so I couldn't say anything. It feels like I'm being burdened with everything. Though I felt this way, my husband, who always listened to me, was no longer here. "If she says she's suffering, you should be more compassionate. Nowadays, no one likes a strict mother-in-law. Anyway,
isn't the food ready yet?
I once tried talking to Joseph about it, but he didn't take it seriously. So much for that, then. It was a daily struggle to suppress my heavy heart. During these days, Mia was born. When Stephen was born, I couldn't show my face around much because I lived far away. What a joy it is to have a baby around. Of course, this doesn't mean I don't love Stephen. Seeing a new life being born, Stephen's eyes sparkled with excitement. The pride of becoming a big brother. He felt it was his duty to protect his little sister. I could feel such thoughts from him. Without comparing these two young ones, I vowed to love them both equally. As Mia's upbringing began, Isabella started treating Stephen harsher day by day. She didn't carry him in her womb, and now that she had given birth to her own daughter, her love for Mia seemed to overshadow everything else. Some people become irritable after giving birth, so I thought maybe it was somewhat understandable. I decided it was my role to support Stephen. Telling myself that, I decided to leave it be. But Isabella's attitude only got worse. Still, Stephen wanted to believe in Isabella, who had been nice to him before. He took the initiative to help out, trying to catch Isabella's attention. One day, after finishing my part-time job in the morning and returning home, I could hear Isabella's yelling from outside.
Why can't you even do this right? You've just made more work for me.
Apparently she was scolding Stephen for something. When I went to see what happened, it looked like Stephen had accidentally knocked over a can of formula while trying to make formula for Mia. Now, he was just trying to help. Isn't it enough that he has the willingness to assist? I tried to calm Isabella, but...
Natalie, please keep quiet. If you're going to interfere, you might as well clean up the spilt milk powder yourself.
She was having none of it. The feeling of a child being yelled at by their mother, even if she's only related by marriage, is indescribable. Seeing Stephen trying to hold back tears of sadness, frustration, and guilt, I was filled with an unbearable feeling. I'll clean this up, okay? You did good, Stephen. After comforting and calming Stephen, I cleaned up the white mess on the floor.
Mia, you shouldn't do things like that. Your brother really isn't useful, is he?
After looking down on us, Isabella spoke to Mia, who still couldn't understand words, without even giving a glance at Stephen. I struggled to contain my anger towards Isabella, who wouldn't even look at Stephen. During dinner that day, when I noticed Stephen was nowhere to be seen, I asked Isabella about him. Where's Stephen?
I don't know, maybe he ran away from home after I scolded him earlier.
That couldn't possibly be. Stephen is only 4 years old. Where would he run away to? Just then, Joseph came home. Joseph, I can't find Stephen anywhere. I spoke to him, but...
Oh, he's a boy. He might have gone to the nearby park or something. Anyway, Mia, I'm home.
He showed no sign of worry. Even if it's a boy, it's already past 7 o'clock. Isn't it worrisome if he went to the nearby park alone? While the two started eating the meal I prepared, I rushed outside. The nearby park, the route to the kindergarten, the grocery store we usually go to for shopping. I searched all the places I could think of, but Stephen was nowhere to be found. Maybe he's gone back home by now. Thinking this, as I tried to open the front door, I heard the sound of metal being hit from the garden. Our garden isn't very large, but there's a small shed. The sound seemed to be coming from there. It can't be. No, that's impossible. As I cautiously approached, the sound of the shed door being hit and a faint voice. Stephen, is that you? Stephen? When I flung open the door, there was Stephen sitting down, his face swollen from crying and sobbing. How could this be? I hurried back with Stephen in my arms to confront the two who were probably still having dinner, and the two, seeing my furious expression, looked at each other uncomfortably. What's going on here? I demanded, still holding a sobbing Stephen.
I just heard from Isabella a moment ago.
Joseph, flustered, received a sharp glare from me before Isabella, without any sign of remorse, said,
It's Stephen's fault. He ruined Mia's milk.
What are these two talking about? Locking him in the shed just for a small mistake? How can they eat knowing this without doing anything? I couldn't help but raise my voice. What are you talking about? It was you who made him do it, wasn't it? Even so, this is too much. Don't you have any sense of responsibility as a mother? Joseph intervened to calm me down, overwhelmed by my intensity.
Let's calm down a bit, Mom. Isabella's just tired and irritated from taking care of Mia. Please be a little more forgiving.
If you knew about it too, you're just as guilty. Locking a 4-year-old in such a small, dark place, I was at a loss for words.
I did tell her that it might be too much.
It seems Joseph was trying to pin the blame solely on Isabella. Isabella glared at Joseph. Before stopping her, you should have let Stephen out. And you claim to be his father? In front of their silence, I pressed on. If something like this happens again, you two will have to leave this house.
No way.
Joseph was flustered and Isabella wouldn't even meet my eyes. Having said this, I hoped it would never happen again. Without another glance at them, I bathed Stephen, fed him the reheated dinner, and tucked him into a warm bed. Throughout, Stephen tried desperately to defend them.
It's my fault for making Mom angry, so Mom isn't bad. Dad just got back from work and was hungry because he's tired.
It broke my heart to see Stephen so nobly defending them. I decided to keep a closer eye on their behavior. Afterward, there was no apology from them, but I was more concerned about Stephen's well-being. Despite what happened, Stephen always helped out and never lost a smile. Whether they truly reflected on their actions because I was watching, I can't say. But since then, there seemed to be no more harsh treatment towards Stephen. Although Isabella sometimes demanded too much help, or was harsh towards Stephen, he himself said,
Grandma, I'm okay. I want to be helpful to Mom, and Mia's cute, too. I have to be strong because I'm the big brother.
Hearing him say that so bravely, I couldn't say anything. Interfering too much might worsen Isabella's mood, leading to her treating Stephen badly again. I wanted to avoid that at all costs. However, contrary to my worries, their attitude towards Stephen went back to how it was before Mia was born. It seems peace has returned despite my worries. Gradually, I too fell at ease and returned to my usual life. 2 months had passed since that dreadful incident. Peaceful days were continuing. One day, I was asked by the store manager at my part-time job to change my shift. Normally, I work only in the mornings, but they couldn't secure staff for the evening until closing time. Since the incident with Stephen, I had been working fewer part-time days, and being someone who can't say no when asked, I accepted.
Oh, Natalie, aren't you going to your part-time job today?
Since I'm usually not home at this time, Isabella asked me as if it were unusual. There's been a shift change today. I have to work in the evening, so I'm counting on you for tonight's dinner. Isabella made an obviously reluctant face, but quickly brightened up, as if she had an idea.
Then since it's a special occasion, why don't we have Mia's birthday party a bit early today?
Knowing I would not be home because of my part-time job, she came up with this idea. It seems I'm not invited to that party. I wanted to celebrate my dear granddaughter's first birthday too.
Then we should start preparing for the party right away. I'll contact Joseph to come home early.
Without sensing how I felt, Isabella seemed pleased.
Well, Natalie, I'm gonna go shopping, so please look after Mia. Since you won't be at the party, that's the least you can do.
She gave me a chance to spend time with Mia alone, using shopping as an excuse. How selfish she can be. Tired of arguing, I quickly took Mia from Isabella and let her go shopping. And that night, after finishing the part-time job, at a time I normally don't work, I was walking home at night. The fatigue doubled because during the day I was forced to help with the preparations for a party I couldn't even attend, made by Isabella, who had returned from shopping. But it was for my granddaughter Mia's celebration, and just imagining the joy in my grandson Stephen's face kept me motivated. As I passed by the house, I noticed the lights were still on. Looking at the clock, it was already past 9 p.m. It was about time to put Stephen to bed. Hopefully I won't be settled with cleaning up. Thinking this, as I looked back towards the house, I saw a sight that made me do a double take. Stephen was sitting alone in the garden, staring into the room. I couldn't understand what was going on. Why was Stephen outside? I hurried to the front gate and rushed to the garden. Stephen, what's wrong? Stephen gave me a relieved smile, and then the next moment he started to cry. What happened? Why are you out here all by yourself? Though I thought I shouldn't press him too much, I couldn't stop myself. Stephen just sobbed without answering, his shoulders shaking. Shall we go inside for now? Then with a surprised look, he stared at me as if he wanted to say something. And with a look of apology, he began.
Today's Mia's birthday, but I'm not allowed inside because it's just for the family.
He sobbed. How could this be? Unable to bear it, I silently took Stephen's arm and started walking out of the gate. Something that shouldn't have happened had happened again.
What's wrong? Grandma, are you angry? Where are we going?
Stephen asked me worriedly, bringing me back to my senses. You haven't eaten anything since noon, have you? Grandma's tired from work too and I'm hungry. Let's go eat something delicious. I spoke in my usual tone, trying to reassure Stephen as much as possible. Sensing something, Stephen responded cheerfully. Taking a child to a restaurant at night, I worried about being judged by the people around us, but none of the customers, not even the staff, seemed to pay us any mind. Leaving Stephen at the table, I stood up. I'll go get us some juice. Pretending to go to the fountain machine, I took out my cell phone. After a few rings, hello? A puzzled voice came through. I introduced myself and apologized for calling so late at night, then briefly explained the situation Stephen was in. The person on the phone said, "I'll be right there," and hung up. When I returned to the table, Stephen was eating the fries he had ordered.
You took a while, Grandma.
He looked up at me anxiously as I placed the soda on the table. I couldn't decide what you wanted to drink. I made an excuse, but Stephen quickly changed his expression.
I love soda,
he said cheerfully and gulped it down noisily. He's supposed to be only 5 years old, coming to a restaurant at this time and not getting overly excited. Sitting quietly alone at the table, even being mindful of looking grown up. Why, such a good child he is. I was so frustrated that all I could do was watch Stephen munching on his fries. After finishing his fries, Stephen seemed restless. What do you think? Should we order a hamburger too? I suggested.
I wonder if it's time to go home. Won't I get in trouble?
Stephen's expression turned serious. Even with that said, it was still not time to go home. Wondering how to explain this to Stephen, a woman entered the restaurant. I glanced at the entrance and waved at the woman. She noticed us and hurried over to our table.
Who's that?
Stephen looked up at her with a puzzled expression as she embraced him. Unable to hold back her tears, the woman I had called over the phone was Stephen's biological mom, Olivia.
Mom?
It seemed Stephen remembered her too. Joseph and Olivia divorced when Stephen was 2 years old, 3 years ago. Yet Stephen remembered his real mom, whom he had longed for when he first came to our house. And Olivia too had never forgotten Stephen for even a moment. Waiting for the two to calm down from their crying, I explained everything to Olivia. Like how Isabella had been harsh to Stephen, locking him in the shed over spilled formula powder, and how he was excluded from Mia's birthday party because he wasn't considered family. I'm sorry, I should have kept a closer eye on things. No, Natalie, it's not your fault. You've been protecting Stephen, haven't you? And you called me. I hesitated to call her here because I had been told by Joseph that Olivia had cheated, leading to their divorce, but she seemed different from what I had imagined. Olivia, you're Stephen's real mom. I called you over on such a whim, but I wondered if it was a nuisance. Maybe you have a new partner or family? I asked hesitantly. Olivia raised her voice. I don't have anyone. All I wanted was Stephen. What did she mean? When I relayed the divorce story I heard from Joseph, Olivia's face turned pale as she began to speak. Actually, it was Joseph and that woman who were having an affair. While looking sadly at Stephen's sleeping face, Olivia told me the truth. Joseph and Isabella had started their relationship around the time Stephen was born. Then, a man claiming to be a lawyer appeared before Olivia, bringing documents about Olivia's alleged affair and neglect of Stephen, discussing divorce, compensation, and child support with Joseph. Olivia, who had no recollection of such actions, had no one to turn to. Having lost her parents early and becoming estranged from friends after marrying Joseph, she was left utterly alone. Being a housewife and devoted to baby Stephen, her interactions outside were limited to brief greetings with neighbors. In such a situation, gathering evidence to prove her innocence was challenging. I felt dizzy. You could have relied on me. But at that time I was so shocked by Joseph's betrayal that I even doubted you. Olivia confessed apologetically, ashamed of my son's actions and regretting not having communicated more closely with Olivia back then. I despised myself. I'm really sorry. So what about the child support now? Yes, I had some money left by my parents and I was fortunate to return to the job I had before marrying. I make sure to pay it for Stephen's sake. I couldn't bear to listen any longer. Unaware of such matters, I had been living naively with that couple. I don't even know how to apologize anymore.
It's okay, Natalie. You've done nothing wrong. And finally, I got to see Stephen. That alone makes all the child support worth it.
Olivia's expression was serene as she spoke. By the way, although Joseph has custody of Stephen, have you not met Stephen at all? I brought up something that had been bothering me. As expected, Olivia's face darkened.
I haven't seen him once since the divorce was finalized.
She answered in a thin voice. What a revelation. I couldn't contain my emotions any longer. Olivia, I've made up my mind. Those two aren't Stephen's parents. You are the only one. I won't let Stephen be separated from you any more. Olivia looked at me with surprise. Then, as if strongly agreeing with my determination, she nodded emphatically.
Actually, it's not that I haven't been doing anything.
Olivia revealed that she had already hired a lawyer to start proceedings for the falsely claimed child support and to sue Joseph and Isabella for compensation. According to Olivia's lawyer, the lawyer Joseph and Isabella had presented turned out to be just a friend, not an actual lawyer. I'll help too, for Stephen's sake. Thus, late at night in the restaurant, Olivia and I formed a pact. 3 months later, I was living my life as if nothing had happened. Of course, I took great care to ensure Stephen wasn't harmed. One day, Olivia and her lawyer came to our house. The two were surprised and flustered, but I calmed them down and had them sit.
What brings you here today?
While Joseph was flustered, Isabella put on a brave face.
We are here to discuss the matter of compensation claims against you and Joseph and to negotiate transferring Stephen's custody to us.
Olivia responded calmly, undeterred.
Compensation? You mean for yourself, right? I've heard all about it from Joseph.
Isabella sneered as if mocking her ex-wife.
That would be because you were Joseph's affair partner.
What? Makes no sense. I met Joseph after he divorced you.
The exchange between the ex-wife and the current wife went on while Joseph just listened silently. Now, both of you, let's first hear what the lawyer has to say. Knowing everything, I pretended to be ignorant and subtly steered the conversation to Olivia's turn.
First, please take a look at these documents.
The lawyer spread out the reports prepared by Joseph and Isabella's fake lawyer.
These were given by Joseph's lawyer at the time of their divorce.
What use is something from so long ago as proof?
Isabella was clearly flustered.
Yeah, that was a lawyer.
As Joseph tried to support Isabella, Olivia's lawyer quickly interjected.
Was that person really a lawyer? Which firm do they belong to?
Ignoring Joseph's stuttering, the lawyer continued.
As a fellow lawyer, let me say this report lacks credibility. The photos are clearly fabricated, and the claims of Olivia neglecting Stephen are too vague.
But that was the evidence that led to their divorce,
Isabella retorted desperately.
Indeed, Olivia divorced under those claims, but the child support claims are too high, and despite paying them, she hasn't seen her child once, right? That's because Stephen didn't want to see her.
As if that could be true, I thought to myself. Stephen had longed for his mom when he first came to our house after the divorce. I was shaking with anger.
Still, you're claiming she neglected him, right? Regardless of how vague, you had testimonies.
Isabella tried to regain some calmness.
Would you like to see the childcare diary I kept?
Olivia pulled out a notebook. An ordinary, well-used notebook. The cover read, Stephen's childcare diary.
Well, you can totally make things up like that.
But as Olivia silently showed the contents of the diary, Isabella's face drained of color. There, meticulously noted with dates, days, and even times, were records of Stephen's feedings, diaper changes, sleep patterns, and at the end of each day a brief diary entry from Olivia. Messages to Stephen were also found in the available spaces. Isabella, raising 1-year-old Mia, should understand. Would someone who neglects their child keep such a detailed childcare diary? Isabella was speechless. Seeing her like that, Joseph appeared bewildered, as if he couldn't understand. Perhaps it's something incomprehensible to someone who has never taken parenting seriously.
In this diary, there are entries about Joseph's activities as well.
Huh? About me? Joseph looked exhausted.
About working late or going on business trips and such?
Olivia added insult to injury with her tone implying she knew all along.
Such diary entries can't possibly expose an affair.
Isabella was right. A diary alone couldn't serve as evidence.
That was the hard part.
Isabella looked triumphantly at Olivia, but then started to panic as if she remembered something.
I'd kept Joseph's credit card statements. I found them in the ledger after we divorced. Neither Isabella nor Joseph seemed inclined to argue. On the day Joseph was supposedly on a business trip and didn't come home, the credit card statement listed a luxury hotel's name. Ignoring the silent duo, Olivia continued. And on the same day, there was a photo posted on a woman's social media. The hashtags include the hotel's name and secret.
That's just a coincidence. That could happen to anyone.
Isabella began to flounder.
Yes, but this woman, despite talking about secrets, was showing off her belongings.
Olivia gradually cornered her.
This watch in the photo is Joseph's, isn't it?
It felt as if I could hear Isabella and Joseph's hearts pounding.
Those are common watches.
Ah, so Isabella didn't know. This was a gift from my husband and me to Olivia and Joseph when they got married. A pair of watches, completely custom-made. I interjected, feigning ignorance.
That can't be.
After a pause,
Enough already,
Joseph said in a defeated voice. Olivia signaled her lawyer.
Since the person involved has admitted it, we can avoid mediation and proceed with the settlement.
I won't admit it. I'll even go to court if I have to.
Isabella was defiant, but the lawyer continued.
Then shall we also discuss the matter of the fake lawyer's report? We have already spoken with him, you know.
Oh, darn it.
Apparently, the fake lawyer was Isabella's friend and former boyfriend. He had been channeling Olivia's compensation and child support to himself.
After we mentioned the possibility of forgery charges, he told us everything.
Isabella seemed unable to argue any longer. Through the door crack,
Mom, what's happening?
Stephen peeked in. It's nothing, Olivia replied with a relieved expression. Let's go home, to your new home, with Mom. Later, instead of a settlement, a court case ensued. This time, the opposition hired a real lawyer, but the outcome was clear. Custody of Stephen was transferred to Olivia. Joseph and Isabella's actions were recognized as criminal. In addition to the forgery, they were ordered to pay back the excessive compensation and child support, and Olivia was awarded damages and child support. Following these events, Joseph and Isabella blamed each other and eventually divorced. Isabella was disowned by her family, and Mia was taken in by her grandparents. Rumors say Isabella ended up in debt and turned to the sex industry, but that's her responsibility. Of course, I've cut ties with Joseph. Who would want to deal with a criminal? Having sold the house we lived in, I now enjoy my freedom alone. I hear Joseph is still making payments to Olivia, but I have no interest in where he is or what he's doing. Olivia and Stephen sometimes visit me. We're more like friends now. Turns out, she and the lawyer from that time have been getting along well. When they visit, I give them relationship advice, and it seems they're doing well with Stephen too. One day, as Olivia was confiding in me about her love life as usual, Stephen suddenly said,
Mom, I like it when you smile, and I have the most fun when I'm with you and that guy.
A year has passed since then. Today is the day Stephen and Olivia are coming to visit. I couldn't wait and went down to the apartment entrance to meet them. I could see them walking towards me. Stephen is holding Olivia's hand, mindful of her condition. He's such a kind child.
Natalie, did you come down just for us? Thank you.
It's nothing. I was looking forward to it too, and I say, taking Olivia's bag and glancing at her noticeably larger belly. It's not just you anymore, is it?
I can't wait to meet the baby. Dad's really looking forward to it too.
Seeing their happy faces, I smile. Outside, we were enveloped in the warm air of spring.